people think about PEAK, the Tarkenton Financial PEAK system. P is for prospecting, E is for education, A is for assessment, analysis, like software tools, and K is for kinship. So let's break each of those down. Kinship, let's start at the back.
Sure.
Kinship, if you're an individual advisor, there's not a whole lot you can do, but we're trying to create events where people can come together. But what you can do, and I was just talking to people about this, we used to have small groups of advisors, and we may start them up again, where 3 or 4 advisors could just get together once a week and just talk about, hey, what are you doing? How's your week been? How do you track your success? What was a win? What was a loss? People have to talk to people, right? Most of our advisors are independent advisors. Look in your neighborhoods, look in society. Fewer people are out walking on the street, talking on the front porch. Everybody's in their house watching their shows, looking at their phone. So kinship, you could start that right there. Find a group of advisors you want to learn from, you want to talk to. A lot of people have Bible studies, men's groups, women's groups, whatever you have. Kinship. But let's jump to the E in education. How can I get smarter about what I do? If you have a fixed mindset, you're like, I know everything there is to know. If you have a growth mindset, you're like, I can learn a lot more. So we've created these peak sales nugget videos, 3 to 5 minute videos. We're just starting to build them. Our top advisors are just sharing little concepts, little ideas, 3 to 5 minutes. Why do we do 3 to 5 minutes? Because we know people's attention span is a lot shorter. 20 years ago when I started in this business, the internet wasn't what it was. Cell phones weren't what they were. It has been documented that our brains have changed. Our attention span is much shorter than it was.
For sure.
So doing a 30 to 45 minute webinar, most people are not going to make it. They might listen to it in the car, but what they want is short. So education, we're providing content, these peak sales nugget videos, where top advisors are just sharing what they do. Here's the way I introduce premium finance to my prospects. Just a couple questions I ask. Or here's how we talk about in-service withdrawals if somebody's reaching 59 and a half and if they're still working and want to tap into their 401k. Little things like that so people can be learning from other people. So again, going back to that peak system, there's so many opportunities to have a growth mindset and to grow. How can I get smarter in the E? Software tools. We were just looking at it yesterday internally. We have 4 or 5 software tools we use. Are they the right tools? How much do we pay for them? Are we getting a return on our investment? If we're not, are there other tools we can use out there to better serve our advisors? And by the way, things change. What you used 4 years ago might be different than what you want to use today.
Yeah.
So, and then last, P is what everybody thinks is the most important, prospecting. How are you getting in front of clients? How do you measure it? One thing, I'm a huge believer in systems and processes and in measuring everything we can. Mm-hmm. So in systems and processes, a few years ago, I worked with a nutritionist who helped me develop some healthy routines and rituals. What do you do when you wake up? What do you do? What do you eat for breakfast? Everybody has a late morning lull. You get hungry. How do you address that? Lunch, dinner, but even in our own, even on our own business, in business, what sort of systems do we have? So, for example, with prospecting, the best advisors they measure it. How many people did I meet with this week? I don't care if you met with 1 or 100. Just measure it. I met with 3 people. I had 4 meetings, 2 with clients, 2 with prospects. So next week, measure it again. Next week, measure it again. So at the end of the month, I met with 15 people, 7 were prospects, 8 were existing clients. So now measure it. And when you look back over time, over a year, you say, oh, January, February, March, really busy. It was slower in the summer. Oh, maybe that was because of the summer. You start to notice trends. What very few people do is measure stuff. And not from a failure success. Again, it doesn't need to be, but how do I get better? Now, we have goals for our sales. We have goals for how many new advisors we bring on. We have goals for how many advisors we have that are doing a certain amount of premium. But if we hit them or we don't, it doesn't really matter. It's just something to mark our progress. Are we making, and if we're not recruiting new advisors, okay, let's have a growth mindset. What can we do to recruit more advisors? What can we do differently? We're not going to ever, the fixed mindset is we're doing all we can do. There's nothing we can do. That's a dead end. But a growth mindset is like, okay, how can I get better at this? What can I do to get better? And again, it applies, you can look at it in your business over the course of a year. You can look at it in a week. So we have a peak sales nugget video from one of our top producers. He came in with us and was in the top 5 in his first year.
Wow.
And he has a certain number of people he wants to meet every day, every week. He has certain sales goals every month, every quarter. Now, he may not hit them. Honestly, they're pretty ambitious, but at least he has something there and he tracks it. And that in and of itself is a growth mentality.
So good.
Yeah.
So good. You said something that stood out to me previously about waking up in the morning and you have a 1,000 things you can do or 100 things you can do throughout the day. I want you to talk generally and then specifically to advisors about managing their time, because you're talking about this peak concept that you have. Is that your filter that you look through everything, and how do you prioritize what to do first and when to do it and how to do it?
Yeah, well, I think a bigger question around peak, and I use this a lot, is what is your peak? So different people may have, when you define what is your goal in a day, in a year, in a lifetime. For some people, it may be, I did 3 million of sales last year, I want to do 5 million this year. For some people, it may be, I want to add life insurance as part of my practice. For some people, it's maybe, I want to get securities licensed and add managed money. For other people, it may be, let's go specific for me. Like, I look at every week, every month, every quarter, every year, how do we grow our business? How do we expand our reach? And I literally think this way, how do I help all of my colleagues, people that I work with, how can I help them grow? Professionally, in terms of their skill set, and then financially, because I know that's important to them, it's important to everybody. But financially tends to follow, right? If we're doing the right thing, if the mission is business to help people. So
For sure.
I think it's important first that you define what is your peak, what is your goal, and it's different for different people. Some people are semi-retired. We have an advisor whose wife is ill, and he wants to spend more time with her. So it may not always be more sales. But by the way, he still has been on our top 10 in the last couple of years. He's doing $5, $7, and $10 million of production while he's spending 50% or more of his time caring for his dear beloved wife who's had a form of Parkinson's. But that's his peak, is to spend more time with her because he didn't know how much time he's going to have. So the first thing is to define what your peak is. And you talk about specifically when I wake up in the morning, everybody's different. Some people, you watch Myers-Briggs and other personality testing. Some people have a roadmap of what their day is going to look like, and some people just take it like it comes. It may be different on a Monday morning from a Saturday morning. Most people on Saturday just want to take it as it comes. But I have built systems and processes into my day. So when I wake up, I do the same types of things. I tend to get to work at the same time. A really great book, there's The Power of Habit. There's another book about atomic habits. Similar concepts. 40 to 50% of what we do every day is on autopilot. Our brain wants to form habits because by forming habits that are just subconscious, we don't have to think about it. So what we do when we wake up in the morning, you brush your teeth, you wash your face, you do push-ups, sit-ups, whatever you do, the longer you do that, the more the neural pathways get ingrained that this is what I do. That's why people I got to take a smoke break at 10 o'clock every morning, they go outside and they take a smoke break because that's what they've done for 100 years. And so it's hard to break those neural pathways. So when you're trying to establish a new habit, it's hard to do that, but research will show 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever, to establish a new habit. But if you have positive habits, it becomes a superpower. And if you have negative habits, it becomes destructive. So we have all seen people in our lifetime who things start going wrong, they start struggling, they deal with stress, maybe want to start drinking a little bit, maybe I'm going to slippery slope, and they're going to go down a negative pathway. So I would say generally I wake up in the morning, not always, we all have bad days, but how can I make this a successful day? What is my goal in this day? Maybe it's to exercise. So for example, when you get over 50, Hunter, I try to exercise 5 or 6 days a week. It could be a 15-minute walk. It could be go to the Y for 30 minutes. It could go do a Pilates class. But I want to have that habit of moving. People want to move their mind. Some people wake up and they do a Sudoku puzzle, right? I want to get my mind moving. That's one thing I'll say I've seen with my dad is he's 84 years old. He's active, using his mind. He always says if he didn't have work, I don't know what he would do. It keeps him young. It keeps him around young people. He's not working 80 hours a week and he's not digging ditches. But the habits that you establish on a daily basis, and it really comes down to that daily, hourly, minute-wise. We have choices every day. How we, for example, mid-afternoon, I'll have a cup of tea often, just as a kind of refresh. Could be a cup of coffee. Probably better not to have a chocolate cake, right? So if you can start to fill yourself with an apple instead of a chocolate cake, it fuels you with positive energy. And how am I going to have more energy to help serve others? So life is just a fascinating discovery experience about yourself and about others. And how can I be better? But the most important thing is that people define what does a peak mean to me? What does reaching a higher level of performance mean? And it's not always quantitative. It's not always, as I said, it's not always higher sales. It often is. But maybe it's maybe it's hiring a new employee, bringing somebody on so that I can pass off the administrative stuff, so that I can focus. That's a really hard thing. And our employees struggle with that. How do I delegate in a way that I don't have to worry about it? I can pass this off, know that it's being done. We all struggle with that. You want to do stuff, but maybe that's your peak, hiring more people so you can focus on higher value activities. So.
It's funny you went there because I was about to ask about habits and daily disciplines. But when I hear you talk about peak, what I'm seeing is it's the end goal, right? And then you work backwards from that end goal and say, what habits do I need to put in place to get me there? And it's something that compounds consistently over time, right? But it's like going back and prioritizing, okay, what do I need to change first? How do I address it and implement something better than what I was doing before? And I mean, just going back to advisors specifically, how do they go about prioritizing what habits they need to implement first? Is it about your exercise and the basic habits, or is it more of like prospecting? Is it more about education, like the actual peak items? What's your opinion on that?
Well, so I think for an advisor, every sales book out there talks about activity, measuring activity. Don't focus on, John Wooden, the famous UCLA basketball coach, said, don't look at the scoreboard, look at what activity, the next play. Bill Belichick used to talk about just focus on the next play. Don't worry about if you're getting a touchdown or whatever. So, but you got a game, you want to win in the sports, but so it's a little bit of a balancing act. But again, I think the first thing is for people to think about, in the next, we just started a new quarter. What is my goal for the next quarter? Or the year, or whatever. But I think it should be activity based. So, how many people do I want to talk to this week? How many calls do I want to make to existing clients? How many new prospects do I want to meet? Just that. So let's say, for example, I want to call 2 clients a day just to check in on them. 2 clients a day. That's 10 a week. That's 40 a month, and that's 480 in a year. Now you may say, well, I only have 50 clients. So you may have to modify. You got to figure out what is your goal. A lot of people, what they do is they say, I'm going to take my existing clients. I have 2 buckets. I have my existing clients and I have my prospects. If I'm an advisor, that's how I would divide my day. So if I have 50 existing clients, maybe I'm going to tier them. A-rated, B-rated, C-rated, based on how many assets they have, some measure of how important they are to you. So your A clients, you may say, I want to talk to them at least once a month. My B clients, I want to talk to at least once a quarter. And my C clients, I want to talk to them at least twice a year. So I would create a framework for your existing clients. And then let's say of your 50, you've got 20 that are A. Say, I'm going to talk to those people once a month. So that means about once a day I should be talking to one. You create some system. It doesn't have to be exactly perfect, but some of our folks will just have a list of all their clients, and they'll just check them off as they talk. I'm just checking in with you once a quarter, once a month, twice a year, whatever. Then you have for your prospects. How am I getting in front of new people? Because if I'm going to grow my business, I've got to turn some prospects into clients, right? So how am I going to get in front of prospects, and how many prospects are in my database? First thing is how am I going to get prospect names? Some of it may be through referrals. So how can I try to get a certain number of referrals? Maybe it's I want to ask for 1 referral a week from an existing client. Hey, if you have anybody you think might be, I'd love to meet them. But referrals are the primary way that people grow their business. So I think you need to have some mindset about how am I going to approach referrals. Some people have events, client appreciation events. They'll host events and invite people to bring a guest. It might be a Thanksgiving themed event, a holiday themed event, a midsummer picnic. But putting that on the calendar, I've got to be intentional about how I want to get prospects, referrals, and think about referrals and be intentional about that. It may be conducting educational programs. For 20 years, we have been leaders in educational-based seminars. They used to be associated with a meal, a dinner seminar. Fewer and fewer people are doing those, but now people are doing these educational events at colleges, universities, and libraries, and there's programs, and we have programs people can do that. So maybe you say, I'm going to do one of those a quarter. You know that those are going to cost maybe whatever they're going to cost, $5,000, $3,000, whatever the number is. So you have in your mindset, I'm going to do one of these a quarter. That's going to be a certain amount. I'm going to do maybe one client appreciation event. So you have a thought around, this is going to be my marketing budget for the year. And that number may be $25,000, $30,000, $10,000, $5,000. We have people who do radio programs that are spending $12,000, $15,000 a month on radio. So it just varies. So it's important that people step back and think about in the next quarter, in the next 6 months, in the next year, how am I going to approach my clients and prospects in terms of what are my goals? And then how am I going to measure that? And this can sound complicated, but when you put it out on a piece of paper, you can really simplify it and just keep track of it and see where you are and see what's working. And again, have a growth mindset, not a fixed mindset. If I don't, so for example, in our business, we're trying to find new advisors that we can work with. We used to have a program, we just buy lists of names and cold call them, and we weren't very good at that. There are firms that are really good at that. They have people that will just pound the phone and make $100 a day. So we host events in our office. We go to conferences and we sponsor events. We leverage Dad. Dad will speak at events. Dad will do talks. So we've discovered what works for us based on the skill set of our people. So it's a blend of being very intentional about your existing clients and your prospects, and then creating systems. And so again, going back to weekly, daily, maybe I'm calling one client a day or two clients a week, or whatever it is. I'm doing one event per quarter. And then at your event, let's take your event, by the way, measure that. How many people came to the event? How many people, how much did I spend? So if you spend, let's take $5,000 because it's a round number, and you get 50 people at that event, you're spending $100 per person to get them there. How many appointments do you get? How many sales do you make? You can measure everything. Again, not in a way to say this was a failure or success, but what can I learn from it? I'm really good. Some people are great at events. They can get up in front of people. Some people just struggle with it. So if you struggle with it, find another niche. Small groups. There's so much to learn, but the important thing is to have a goal, have a plan. One of Dad's favorite sayings was from T. Boone Pickens: "An idiot with a plan can outsmart a genius with no plan." Ooh. But most advisors don't have a plan. They don't have a plan for how are they going to grow and what are their goals. So that's really important, I think.
Man, that's awesome. And going back, so say you have a plan in place and you're trying to create these habits. And one of the things you talk about all the time is consistency. So I want you to kind of go a little bit deeper in the importance of consistency, no matter what you're doing, because you could do it once or twice and not see results, get discouraged. But talk about pushing through that and being consistent anyway.
I'm going to borrow from a video that's 5 or 7 minute video from Simon Sinek, who is a great speaker. If you've seen him, he's all over the internet. It'll probably pop up in your feed tonight. I can send it to anybody. And he talks about consistency. And he talks about it in 3 components: in health, in relationships, and in business. And he said, you can go to the gym 3 days a week, this week, next week, week after, and you look and say, I don't see much of a difference. It's only by doing things consistently after 3 months, 6 months, you might start to notice a difference. Hey, I'm feeling better. I've got more energy. I've lost some weight. I'm seeing some more tone. It's only by doing it consistently. And it's, if you go to and by the way, in a given week, you could go to the gym once a week for 3 hours, or you could go 5 days a week for 20 minutes. You get a lot more out of the latter, going 5 days a week for 20 minutes instead of one day a week for longer. In relationships, and this is straight off Simon Sinek's video, so all credit to him. You can give your wife flowers on Christmas, birthdays, anniversaries, send them gifts on those special days. But a deep, lasting love is a daily thing. It's unloading the dishwasher. It's giving them a kiss when you get home. It's asking them how their day was. It's consistency. It's doing it every day. The last piece on leadership, and I preach this to our team all the time, you can go get a certificate from the Harvard Business School Education Exec Ed. You can take an online class. Leadership is every day. And you can be a leader and, hey, I'm going to take the initiative to get this done. I'm going to call this person and get back with the answer. I'm not going to blame. I'm going to go find a solution, not a problem. The world is full of people who are just, this doesn't work. I didn't like this. They're just finding problems. The winners are the solution. I'm going to find a solution. We had an issue come up yesterday where we were trying to clarify a policy by one of our insurance carriers. And one of my colleagues said, I'm going to take the initiative to reach out to them, explain the situation, and get the answer. Amen. That's wonderful. Finding solutions, not problems. So
good.
Going back, leadership is a daily thing. And Simon Sinek gives other examples. The examples are everywhere. If you just go to the dentist twice a year, your teeth will fall out. It's the exercise of brushing your teeth every day, twice a day. Most dentists will tell you that flossing is actually more important than brushing your teeth. But flossing is an example in that power of habits. They talk about keystone habits, little habits that set off other habits. So exercise is one. If you exercise, now I'm going to go probably have a salad instead of having a baked potato, and I'm going to so flossing is a good example. It's a tiny little thing. I don't know what percentage of the people do floss, but if you floss, your trips to the dentist will be a lot easier. If you floss every day, it'll be your teeth will be in much better shape. If you just floss twice a year, your dentist will see it right away. It's the daily consistency of activities. So trying to think about in your day, from a personal standpoint, what do I eat? What do I exercise? What do I do around to your business? What time do I get in? What are the first things I do? How do I prioritize it? How do I prioritize clients and prospects? An area we all have to improve is we all get interrupted, right? We can have these grand plans and then somebody calls, there's a fire drill, something goes wrong, there's an emergency. How do I deal with that, address it, and then try to refocus on whatever my goals for the day are? Another famous book, it's called Margin. Building enough margin into your life. So if I have a meeting at 9 and at 10 and at 11, I got lunch at 12, meeting at 1, 2, 3, I'm going to the gym at 4, home at 5, dinner at 6. There's no space in between. You've got to create space, going back to slowing down, not being so hurried. It's the same thing financially. If your budget's here and your income's here and your budget's here, there's no margin for error. I'm going to get a flat tire. The ice maker's going to break. The air conditioner's going to go out. You've got to create financial margin so that if something goes wrong, you can deal with it. And the same way in your personal life. You got to say, hey, I'm going to leave the 10 to 11 o'clock hour free so I can respond to emails or deal with stuff that's come up. So there's so many little things we can do. And again, you don't know this when you're 22 years old. Maybe my dad at 84 does know it, but learning from others, learning others' good habits, going back to the maxims, people have to talk to people. We learn by talking to other people. And we learn a lot on social media now. It's interesting. There's a lot of negative on social media. I have found, somebody suggested to me that I cultivate an Instagram feed that delivers to me what I find value in. And so it may be spiritual, it may be health and wellness, it may be personal growth. For me, it's probably not the cat videos. I know for a lot of people it is. They want humor or whatever, gardening, cooking, whatever. But you can cultivate. The information we have available to us now is unbelievable.
It's mind-blowing.
Yeah, how we can eat better, exercise better, think better, grow our businesses. It's amazing. People 50 years ago didn't have access to these videos of great thinkers. There were great thinkers in that time, but they wrote books. How to Win Friends and Influence People. Dale Carnegie. It's one of the most famous books ever. I have read it, but he didn't have the benefit of being able to put it on social media in bite-sized pieces, And also going back to the shorter videos and the shorter content, we all can only digest so much at a time. The best way to consume anything is slowly. Ask all the nutritionists, slowing down, eat your meals. If you get 4 hours of content, it's going to overwhelm you, but get 5 or 10 minutes a day. Let that build. That's what Instagram does provide, is a learning platform, if you cultivate it the right way. Now, we all get tied going off on some rabbit hole with old high school friends or whatever, but it's just like anything. If you harness it to work for you, as opposed to becoming addictive, which it does for a lot of people.